Welcome to Kicking Ass and Taking Names, the Business Owners Empowerment Podcast. I'm your host, Marlon Griffith, Esquire. Join us on this podcast journey as we help you break free from the grind and get your business to work for you. We will delve into impactful conversations with business owners, corporate leaders, professional service providers, and industry innovators that will provide you with insights and actionable strategies that will transform your entrepreneurial path, boost your success, and put you in control of your business journey so you can kick ass and take names. Welcome to episode 13, Developing Sales Strategies for Consistent Business Growth. My guest is Chris Cocca. Chris Cocca is a fractional sales leader and business development expert who enables sales success for professional services firms and B2B business owners. He says he builds a foundation for revenue growth by developing his sales playbook that includes sales process, sales strategy, and sales stories. He coaches and develops sales teams and leaders, including building accountability through performance, management, and KPIs. He has over 25 years of sales leadership experience. If you want to connect with Chris or learn more about the services he offers, you can reach him on his website, www.chriscoccasales. That's CHRISCOCCA sales.com. Hello, welcome to the next episode of Kicking Ass and Taking Names. It's Business Owner Empowerment Podcast. I'm your host, Marlon Griffith, Esquire. This session is about sales. And the best way we can get into this is actually something that I took from my next guest website. It says, success in sales requires strategy. Many firms struggle with inconsistent revenue growth and lack a repeatable business development process. As a leader, you, the business owner, may find yourself constantly juggling client work and new business acquisition, leaving little time for strategic growth. This challenging environment can lead to difficulty attracting and retaining top talent, uncertainty about how to scale your firm effectively, and we all know this, a constant feeling of operating in crisis mode. If that describes you, my next guest, Chris Cocca, is a must listen. Good day, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Happy Friday, Marlon. I'm really happy to be with you today.
All right. So this is where clearly you are a sales guy, but I'm going to allow you to just tell my audience who you are.
Yeah, first I'm a father and a husband, so I would start with that. I've been married for over 30 years to my beautiful wife, Missy. I've got 2 adult daughters, one of which is getting married in May, and live in Newmarket, Maryland, have been in Maryland now for a little over 17 years, and Missy and I love Maryland. It's home for us. And, in terms of my background and my journey, I actually, Marlon, started as a CPA and a finance guy. So I really didn't start as a sales guy, but then I kind of grew to love sales, made the transition, eventually got relocated out to Maryland with PepsiCo, and had a long career in sales leadership before I decided to start my own business. Like many of your listeners are entrepreneurs. I decided to start my own consulting business about 8 years ago, and have not looked back. And it's been beautiful. It's been great to be able to work with professional services firms and their teams, and help them grow and help them gain confidence and help them with their strategy, like you just talked about earlier from my website. So it's really been a dream for me to be a business owner, and the dream has come true, and happy to share anything that I can help your audience think about or learn today with you.
Awesome. Now let me tell you, this guy practices what he preaches. Right? He practices what he preaches. I would tell you, Chris and I have known each other for what, over the past year or so. We're part of I guess, a networking organization that we're
Yes,
part of, and so we have exchanged emails. Right? So Chris has something very unique in his email, where that in his signature line, on his signature, you have a little video.
I do.
Now I know I'm jumping ahead, but I really want to, because I've never seen that before. So tell us just briefly, what's this video and why did you do it?
So I'll give a shout out to the partnership. So it's called Pitch 59. And it's really cool because, people have limited attention spans, Marlon, as you know. And, you could try to do a 5-minute video or a 5-minute pitch and people just aren't going to listen that long. They don't have that kind of attention span. So it's 59 seconds. That's why it's Pitch 59. It's clean and clear on who you are, what your value proposition is, who you serve, and most importantly, the impact that you make on the people that you work with. And then it's got a little bio attached to it. But especially for solopreneurs, it's a great way to introduce yourself and to get people to know you a little bit better versus just sending a document or your LinkedIn profile or something like that. So for anybody that is interested in checking that out, I think it's pitch59.com, and I've just been using it for a couple of months, and it's been really great.
I'm stealing it.
All right.
I'm stealing it. I'm just letting you know.
All right.
So, let's get to sales. And before is there a difference in your mind between sales and marketing?
Yes.
And if so, what is it?
Yeah, they're two different disciplines, two different functions, two different outputs in terms of what they do. But it's kind of like an Oreo, right? They go together and they really need to fit together. They need to harmonize. They need to communicate together. So marketing is really a couple things. And again, I'm not a marketer, but I do a fair amount of it. So marketing would first start with your brand. So I can see your brand in the background. Do people identify with your brand? Does your brand attract the right customers on your website? Do people understand it? That type of thing. So branding is really important. And then it would be reaching out across, all of the market to your ideal client. So it's really important for marketing and sales to agree on what the ideal client profile is, why they would buy from you, how they would benefit from you, and kind of what makes you different or unique. And so it's marketing's job to go out and target those people in the market that would be interested in kind of waking them up to, hey, I can work with Marlon, I can get all these benefits, right? So they're doing campaigns, they're doing social media, they're doing direct outreach. That's what marketing does. And what they create is what I call marketing qualified leads. And the short term for that, for anybody that knows that world, is called MQLs. So that is the handoff to sales. So they're going to hand off that, somebody fills out a web form, somebody responds to a campaign, then it's up to marketing to make sure it's qualified, make sure it's a fit, then hand it off to sales, and then sales is going to further qualify it and then try to go close it out if it's a good opportunity for them and for you. So sales picks up with a qualified lead and then nurtures that relationship across the sales process, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So there's got to be a process to eventually get them to, number one, understand what the benefit is and working together. Number two, for sales to understand with the customer, what do they really need? I could sell a lot of things, Marlon. That doesn't mean that you need a lot of things, right? So I could tell you, hey, Marlon, you need X, Y, and Z. You need a sales comp plan. You need this, you need that. But that's not really what a good salesperson does. A good salesperson really understands the need. Then they share the benefit. Then they come to an agreement on what a proposal would look like. Then they review the proposal and close it. So it's sales' job to take that marketing qualified lead, if it comes to them, nurture it, show value, understand needs, come to an agreement on how you can fill those needs, and then close it as a new client and then prepare to onboard it. So a lot of times sales then will have to work with somebody on the operations side of the business to onboard that client. And I'm a big believer that sales should stay involved in the relationship, but once you start to onboard the client, you have operations people or other people that do that, sales should be working back upstream to more new clients, right? That they're focused on bringing in that business, not necessarily delivering it. But I will say there are many people out there that do both. Like in my world in professional services, there are a lot of people that have to deliver client work and they have to do business development. And I'll say something about the word sales. When you talk to lawyers and accountants and consultants and what I would call professional services firms, wealth managers, sales is kind of a dirty word. Like, people don't want to, I'm not a salesperson. I don't sell, you can't make me sell, that kind of thing. And so what they do identify with is business development. I'm developing my business. I'm developing my company, right? So when I talk about professional services, I really don't say the word sales. I'm always talking about business development because that resonates more with that audience and they can identify with it, and it doesn't sound as icky as sales, because a lot of those people are not salespeople. They're great lawyers, they're great accountants, they're great wealth managers. But if you said, hey, are you a salesperson? They would say, no, I'm not a salesperson. So it's sort of like a necessary evil, right? That they have to represent themselves. They have to be able to do business development to be successful. So marketing starts the equation. Sales finishes the equation, but they have to be synced up. They have to be in alignment. They have to be on the same wavelength in terms of what's the right business, who are the right clients, how do we serve them at the highest level. And, many times I see marketing and sales get disconnected there, where marketing believes one thing, sales believes another thing. And suddenly sales is saying to marketing, hey, why are you sending me these leads? Like, these are not people we want to serve. Like, these are the wrong leads, right? Why are you sending these leads? Or marketing saying to sales, hey, Marlon, I gave you all those great leads and you didn't close any of them.
Right.
Like, I can't look good unless you look good. So what help do you need to close these leads? I'm not a salesperson. What help do you need to kind of close these out? So it's really important that those two sides kind of work together.
Sure. And I neglected to say that you are now currently the president of Evergrowth.
Yeah, my brand is Evergrowth. My formal company name is Strategic Sales, but I've built and launched Evergrowth specifically for professional services firms to help them grow and scale. And it's a concept that people can understand and know how it would apply to them, because I'm creating a process and I'm creating a foundation for growth over and over and over again for many, many years. It's not a quick fix kind of thing. It's how do we work together to build the right foundation and the right process for you to grow for years and years.
Okay. And I think that's the key, Chris. There's two things that struck me when we spoke. I kind of looked into specifically what you do. And I think many business owners struggle with the developing systems for business development, developing systems for all parts of their business. But for this podcast, we're focusing on business development. It's kind of really sometimes left to someone they hire who may or may not be really good as far as getting results. But if that person walks out the door, what happens to your system? System walks out the door with that person. That doesn't work. That's right. That's a lot of sleepless nights. So one of the things that you offer, that you bring to the table, is a system that's repetitive, meaning is that it can continue even if an individual person is not there, because it's not built around a person, built around the system. And also, one of the things you bring to the table is you help them create systems that can actually grow. So we use the scale is now the new word in 2024, 2025. Just another word for grow, but at least growing efficiently, I should put it that way. But scaling you're growing your business. So let's talk about that. What is that system? First of all, tell me, what is, from your perspective, what is the one thing that you see that holds small and mid-sized businesses back.
Okay. On the business development / sales side.
You're the
Okay,
sales
on sales.
guy.
All right, we'll talk sales. All right. I can say sales. It's okay. So on the sales side, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to give you 3 because they really go together. And the first one, if I could only choose one, it would be the first one. But I think these 3 things go together. Number 1, most professional services firms and other companies do not have a documented and followed sales process or business development process. So that systematic way that we just talked about, it's not documented. It's not tied to their CRM. Everybody's selling differently. Nobody knows, how it's going to go. You can't forecast, et cetera.
What's a CRM? I know what it is, but
I'm
tell
sorry.
me, what's the CRM?
Sorry. So that is a customer relationship management software. So I think most of the audience has heard of Salesforce or HubSpot. Those are the 2 big ones. And so it's your tool, your technology to manage your sales pipeline and your leads, all those MQLs we talked about, and all of your contacts and things like that. Like if I'm talking to somebody out there that sales is important to them and they do not have a CRM, you got to go get a CRM. Like,
and a CRM
I wouldn't even work with anybody, Marlon. Seriously. Yeah. Like if you said, hey, let's work together on your business. I said, okay, what CRM do you have? And you say, I don't have one. And I say, well, let's get you one. You say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have to refer you to somebody else because it's part of my system. Right. And it doesn't have to be.
Chris, when we say CRM, that your Outlook calendar or your Outlook contact list is not a CRM.
No, and a spreadsheet's not a CRM, and a sticky pad is not a CRM, and whatever other format that you have is not a CRM. And it doesn't have to be expensive. Like I use a CRM called Pipedrive, Marlon. Not expensive, very intuitive, and serves its purpose for me. Now, if I were a $100 million company, probably not a good fit, right? I probably would use Salesforce or HubSpot. But I'm not a $100 million company today. And so I'm using Pipedrive, and Pipedrive is perfectly capable of doing everything that you needed to do from a CRM standpoint. So that's my shout out for Pipedrive. I don't own Pipedrive stock or anything like that. So there's none of that. But I would recommend, like when people say what CRM to use, I would say Pipedrive if you're going to get a new CRM. So yeah, I think it's really important to have that business development process, that sales process that's tied to a CRM. That's number 1. Number 2 is that those companies, especially if they have multiple people that are selling, which most businesses do, they do not have a good system of accountability and KPIs and scorecards, right? So they don't have the key performance indicators. They don't know what success is going to look like. They don't have a great scorecard. There's no accountability. There's accountability in the business. So if it's lawyers, there's accountability to deliver good legal work and representation to their clients, but there's no accountability to business development and sales. It's a disconnect, right? It's, hey, get what you can get. We have this number for our firm. We're trying to grow $1 million this year, and we expect you to contribute to that. Okay, well, what does that mean? Like, how much am I expected to contribute, and how do I even get there? Do I even know how to get there? So it's that accountability piece. And I teach companies how to build the right KPIs, what I call the sales math, Marlon. So everybody's heard of the funnel, the sales funnel. And it starts with the leads coming in the top and it goes all the way down to a new client. But most people don't understand the math from top to bottom. Like if I need to win, let's say 10 new clients this year, well, how many proposals do I need? How many qualified leads do I need? How many marketing leads do I need at the very top?
Chris, if I may, just tell my audience, what is a qualified lead? When you've used that word a few times, what is a qualified lead?
A qualified lead would start with you knowing your ideal client profile. So you know who you want to serve. So you can't even get a qualified lead until you know I call it ICP, until you know your ideal client profile. Once you know that, a qualified lead would be 2 things. It would be your ideal client is interested in working with you. They've shown interest. So you might have identified them. I might have identified you as a lead for me, right? It's not yet qualified until you tell me that you're interested in having a conversation about getting help. At that point, it's what we call a suspect, right? It's a lead, but it's not yet qualified. So many salespeople and many business owners do a terrible job qualifying leads. Terrible. They're doing one of two things. They're either qualifying bad leads that they find out later that they don't want to work with because it's not ideal, or they're not doing a good enough job of really. They may be a good lead, but maybe they don't have a budget, or maybe they don't have the right time frame, or maybe they're going to be very difficult to work with, or what have you. And so they will qualify those leads. They will spend months chasing that lead, and then they will lose the deal. Sure. And so one of the things I teach companies is to eliminate that time. Like if you could get all that time back in your life of chasing a bad deal, what would you do with all that time? I'm sure you would do something much more productive than chasing a bad deal for months and months. Absolutely. But I guarantee you, everybody in the audience that sells knows exactly what I'm talking about. They get all the way through. They do a proposal. It blows up. It doesn't go anywhere. And you think, gosh, could I have avoided most of this if I just qualified it properly? Sure. So and that goes back to the sales process. The reason you don't do a good job with a qualified lead is you've got no process. You've got no way to measure and understand what's qualified and what isn't, and what do I need to do to move them towards a proposal. It's the steps and the stages in the process, and that qualified lead is one stage or one step in the sales process that should be documented.
Sure. Now, I think I interrupted you because you were giving the three things, and it was the system. I think it was accountability, and it was up to number 3.
And the number 3 would be the owners do not invest the right resources in coaching, training, and developing themselves and their team to improve their sales acumen, to improve being better at sales or better at business development. They just don't invest in that. And of all the things not to invest in, that's your lifeblood. That new business coming in, there is no business without new clients, without retaining clients, right? So it always strikes me that that's the last thing they think about. But a lot of times I think that there's a little fear. And I think the fear is, well, I've put my people in a class, or, well, I'm not sure my people will take to this, or what have you. And so there's a fear to make that investment because they don't want to waste money, right? And I wouldn't want to invest in anything that wastes money either. But that's where I tell people, if you have the right business development process and you have the right accountability, now you're ready to coach, train, and develop your people. They go in order. Got to have process first, accountability second, training, coaching, and development third. Those 3 together are what I see as the gap in the market. And it's typically all 3, but some companies it may not be all 3. But typically most companies struggle in all 3 of those areas to one degree or another.
If I may, I want to go back to number 2, accountability.
Sure.
Tell me, what does accountability look like?
I think accountability, if we're talking about holding other people in your organization accountable to contribute their fair share of the sales number. So let's start with that. Right. So first of all, accountability looks like goals. Like if you're on my team and you're accountable, that means that, Marlon, you and I have agreed to how much are you going to sell in 2025? We agree. Call it a quota, call it a sales goal. It might be tied to your compensation. It might not. But ultimately, we agree to that goal. So that's the first step is, do we agree to the goal and the related numbers to the goal? Sure. The second would be, are you and I meeting one-on-one at least twice a month or once a month at the very, very least to talk through your performance on sales, to talk through how you are doing so far year to date, to talk through what's in your pipeline. What are you working on? What do you need help with? To talk through marketing concerns that you may have, right? It's a dynamic every other week or once a month, one-on-one, so that I can keep you on track and make adjustments if needed. So, and there's a very specific process that I teach on how to do that one-on-one, right? And then if there are several people, let's say that Marlon, it's you and 3 or 4 other people that have a sales goal, then the last piece is that we are going to get together at least once a month and have a team meeting and just talk about sales. We're already having team meetings to talk about operations, but we're really not having a team meeting to talk about sales. So we're going to get you and the marketing person. They're going to be welcome to come to the meeting, and we're going to have a really good, thorough discussion on the pipeline, on the metrics, on the performance, on the market, on what's changing. It's going to be very dynamic, and I have a very specific way of teaching that as well. So it's going to be a really, really good team meeting. And then I think, we'll get into the development piece later, but I think accountability also means support. It doesn't mean I'm just got the stick out and say, Marlon, you're not hitting your number. Like, what's going on? I don't know if I can keep you if you can't hit your number. Like, that doesn't work with people these days. It just doesn't. Like, it might have worked 20, 30 years ago. It doesn't work today. It's how can I motivate? How can I bring out the best in you, your motivations? How do I know what makes you tick? What's important to you? What's important to your family? Because then we can be accountable and be on the same page, because I understand you, understand what you want and what you need, and we can agree to what that accountability is going to look like, right? Sure. So I'm a big, back in my early days of PepsiCo, I was taught and never really kind of pushed back that do it all the same way, hold everybody accountable the same way, be really consistent, right? And do it all. And what I learned is that different people like to be coached different ways. Different people like to be held accountable in different ways. Different people have different personal goals. So I learned that it can't be a one size fits all, that accountability should be truly between you and that individual on their terms at their level. Right. So you really have to have a mutual understanding, I guess, to be, you can't just force accountability, Marlon.
One of the reasons I asked you that question, because we talk about different sides of businesses, and you mentioned earlier that often is the owner who's, particularly at the earlier stages of the company, responsible for the sales, business development. We could use that word. But the question I really ask is, does the business owner ever hold himself accountable? So you do the same. Will you agree that you, as the business owner, if you're the one that's responsible for business development, you do the same thing as far as having a goal as to what your numbers are and meeting and all of those kind of things. You agree?
Yeah, I agree. And I'll take it a step further. I think the owner one way or another needs an accountability partner. They have to have somebody independent from them that's helping them see where the gaps are and what they need to do to improve. So whether it's a business coach or a sales coach or, a Vistage person, or there are any number of people, but I have an accountability partner and I own my own business. Everybody should have somebody that's independent. I'm not talking about your wife, even though she is my accountability partner, but not for my business, right? So you have to have somebody that's independent that can truly listen to you and help you hold yourself accountable.
And that's and I as well have an accountability partner, and I found that to be very helpful. Sometimes I don't like those conversations. Sometimes I don't look forward to those conversations. Because you only want to hear the good stuff, but it's very, very important. So that's why I jumped to number 2. But let's get back to the systems.
Yes.
Now, I'm not asking you to give away your secrets, but from a higher level though, what does a system look like, and why is it important beyond what we've already discussed?
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of building a playbook for your business that's customized to your business, that everybody can live by, that is kind of like your own common language. So I do that. So I build, as part of the playbook, I build out the strategy. So what is your strategy? What's your go-to-market? Who's your ideal clients? What are your buyer personas? There's many, many areas there. We could spend a whole episode on that.
Sure.
So it's strategy first, because you got to know where you're going before you start to try to execute. Then second would be the business development or sales process. So what are all the steps from qualifying a lead to giving a proposal to closing out a deal for a win or a loss for a new client? So the second part of the playbook is the process. The third part is the messaging and what I call stories. So I think that part of what should be common in a company is what are the stories that you want to tell to your ideal clients, to your prospects about how you serve, who you serve, and the impact that you make. And I'm a big proponent of a methodology called client hero story, where you are the guide in the process and they are the hero. And so it takes a lot for people to really kind of get their minds around that, because we all want to be the hero in the story. Like we came in and did X, Y, and Z, but people don't want to hear that. They want to hear about somebody like them that helped figure it out with your help. Like it's got to relate from person to person, from prospect to client, right? So I'm a big believer in building client hero stories. And for those that are listening, the marketing book that is behind that I then took and made into what I do on the sales side is called Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller.
Read the same book.
Okay. All right. So that's a good book. Go get that book. Go get that book if you haven't talked about it before, but go get that book. And that's a real good book for marketing, by the way, as well, for your brand. So it's really important to have the right stories that really resonate, because people will remember stories. People will connect with stories. People will buy from you because they trust you. And those stories build trust. That's kind of what it does. So there's a whole methodology on that. And then I think it's really important that your message needs to be consistent with what's on your website, all of your marketing materials, what's on social media. Because if marketing and other people are saying different things.
Can I say something? I want to stop you.
Sure.
If I may, Chris. I want to actually flip it around. And I want to say that your message, your stuff on your website and your social media should be consistent with your message.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. You got to decide the message first. And that's the work that I do with clients. We get the message right. Then we go back to website and other things and make sure that it all syncs up so that the client or the customer has the same experience all the way through, right? They're not hearing this over here and then getting confused because now they hear something different over here.
And I think sometimes that's lost, where, you have inconsistent, or can be seen as inconsistent messages.
Yes.
To your audience or to your potential clients. Right. So if you can drill down a little bit, how do you help the client, the small business, the business owner, come to a consistent message or form a consistent message?
Yeah, we start with an exercise on what truly is your unique value proposition. And part of that is differentiators. Part of that is the work that you deliver. Part of that is why a client would come to you in the first place. And you've got to make that really clean and clear. I think sometimes when people try to do their own unique value proposition, it's too big. It's too much, and people just get confused. So it's got to be really, really clean and concise. I would say if you're writing it out, 2 or 3 sentences at the very most, it's got to be easily remembered. So that unique value proposition and the differentiators are a start. And I'll throw in something really quick that it isn't what you believe your value proposition and your differentiators are. It's what your customers tell other people that they are, or would tell you if you asked them what they are, right? Sometimes we drink our own Kool-Aid on why we think we're, special and great. But then if you ask clients, independently, like, why did you buy from us? And why have you continued to work with us? They're going to tell you something different than whatever it is that you probably think. And
isn't it, Chris? It's to ask. How many of us actually ask clients?
Yep. And that if I'm working with a client, we do that together. We work on that. That's part of it. Yeah. So I think it's really important to get that messaging, and it's what I call voice of the customer. You want to put that messaging as the customer would speak of you. And the only way to know is to do, some really structured interviews, and then to take that information and then work together internally on the unique value proposition and the differentiators, and then the stories, because your unique value proposition is embedded in the story, right? Instead of you saying, hey, this is my unique value proposition, you're telling a story and your value comes out in the story. People get what the value is by the way that you tell the story. So that's how all these things connect. And then that's got to be in the playbook. And then everybody has to agree that they're going to be consistent in their messaging, in their written messaging, in their conversations with clients and prospects. And the test that I would give a business owner is that if you have multiple salespeople, ask them independently when they talk to a prospect, how do they talk about your value and your differentiators? How do they describe your business? And if you get everybody saying the same exact thing, that's a start. Now you're on track. You may need to tweak it, but now you're on track. But 9 times out of 10, you got 5 salespeople, you're going to have 5 different answers, which is not good, by the way.
Yeah,
because
right,
then it's roulette at that point. Like, well, which salesperson am I getting, and what am I going to hear from this person versus that person, right? And some may be closer to the truth than others, but ultimately, you want everybody, even you as the owner, you got to be consistent with your message over and over. Those 3 things that I talked about, I'm very consistent with that message over and over and over because they're true, and people need to understand it so that they'll understand me and they'll understand how we can work together. So you cannot repeat it enough to people, because sometimes it takes multiple communications and conversations for people to even understand it and get it. Sure. It takes a while.
Now, this may be an obvious answer to this question, but how does a business use this system to scale up from a small business to a mid-sized business, or to just a larger small business, or a bigger mid-sized business? How do they use these systems? How does that work?
Yeah, I think once you have the playbook that we just talked about, then the next step is getting your CRM right, and the CRM should reflect the process in the playbook. So they got to go together, right? And you don't start with CRM and work backwards, which most companies do. Start with the playbook and the process and work to CRM. And then the CRM is really your heartbeat of how that's going to get executed. So, I have a saying with clients, and I get them to kind of pick it up, that if it isn't in your CRM, it didn't happen. So don't tell me that you sold something or met with somebody or whatever. I want to see it in the CRM so that I can learn from that data, so that I can coach against that data. So, once you have the playbook and you've trained on it, then you have the CRM. Now that's our common language and our common data to really make sure that systematically we're executing. But you got to have the accountability. You got to have the one-on-ones. It's all connected together, but it's really first everybody understanding and agreeing to the playbook. Second, everybody getting square and aligned with CRM. And the third is making sure that as they're executing anything in the sales process, it is reflected in the CRM. It is reflected in your pipeline. It is reflected in your data. And even I'll talk to owners out there that do, like you and I, we rely heavily on referral partners and COIs and people like that refer great business to us. Those people need to be in your CRM. Your meetings with them need to be in your CRM because they're part of your pipeline. It's not a marketing lead. It's a referral like that. It's a direct lead, right? All that has to be tracked. And then you have to be consistent with how you're approaching that. How do I approach all my referral partners? How do I approach all of my best clients that refer business to me? How do I keep those relationships going? So that's part of the process as well. But really, it's just, I think in its simplest form, it's everybody executing that sales process step by step, consistently, and documenting it to the best of their ability. That really will sustain you if everybody's doing it the right way.
Right. So just for my purpose of my audience, you use the acronym COI, and that's Centers of Influence.
Yes, Centers of Influence.
That's what you were referring to. I do want to stress, probably can't stress enough what you're saying as it relates to you're using the CRM, but it's about capturing all of this data.
Yes.
Right. Rather, even if you are the only business development person as a solopreneur, you're the only business development person. It doesn't matter. You capture it because that is the lifeblood, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately,
It's
because
it's the history.
It's the
It's
history.
history, right?
It's the
And you can
history.
learn, and you can learn from that history, right?
That's right.
So if I know, Marlon, in 2024 that I closed those 10 clients and I knew exactly where they came from, which is part of the process, then that informs me on what I need to be working on going forward because I know where my business came from, right?
That's right.
But most owners don't have a good handle on where their business came from,
That's
right? And then if I am losing, let's say, 40% of the opportunities that I have, I'm closing 6 of 10, right? And I'm losing 4 of 10. Do I really have a handle on what are the reasons why I lost those 4 out of 10? Is it price? Is it competition? Is it my brand's not good? Is it that I'm really bad at the sales process, which can be a big factor in that? Like, what is driving that, and where am I going wrong? Because I can't learn from it if I'm not capturing it, and I can look back on it. So I would encourage owners that once a quarter, they're looking back on the previous 90 days of data. They're pausing for a second and just saying, okay, what's going right? What's going wrong? What adjustments do I need to make for the next 90 days?
Okay.
So that's also part of the process that I work with clients on is we've got a quarterly accountability process that we work on together to pause, look back, understand, apply, put a new plan in place for the next 90 days and sprint for those 90 days. If you're doing it in those 90-day sprints, you're much more likely to accomplish your annual goal versus just letting it ride. And then you get to December and suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, I'm way off of my number. Well, you should have made 3 adjustments before, at least 3 adjustments before you got to December.
I mean, I advocate, and I know many businesses who do this, who do literally quarterly meetings.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
They might even go somewhere. Spend a weekend at a hotel somewhere where they can just get away from everything. But they do with their executive team.
Yes.
And part of that quarterly meeting is, as you said, you assess what occurred in the previous quarter to make adjustments to where you want to be for the upcoming quarter.
Yes.
Right. It's very very important to do that. So I want to now get to. And one of the things you haven't discussed, and I know a lot of businesses can start a business for two reasons. One is to what we call a lifestyle business, right? To support their lifestyle, basically replaces whatever they used to do as a W-2.
Yes,
that's fine. And then some other businesses are started for growth, either to one day be purchased or one day to purchase other companies.
Yes.
And often, and I know this is not specifically your area, but you know how important this is when it comes to the valuation of a business.
Yes.
And one of the things you look at when you're valuing a business is the systems they have in place. And clearly, sales is one of the crucial systems that one looks at because you want to see that history. You want to see that pipeline. You want to see, okay, where is the business coming from to support these revenue numbers?
Yeah, what am I buying?
Yeah.
Am I buying future? I could see your financials, but what future growth am I buying? So if there's no system, if you're overly dependent on the owner selling everything, the value of your business goes down.
That's right.
Significantly. If you have a great system, you have everybody selling, the buyer is going to be able to inherit that system and build off of it. The value of your business goes up.
Absolutely. That's also one of the very important things. So the final thing that you talk about, the 3 things, was coaching.
Yes. And
tell me, what is as you see it, the value as it relates to coaching either the owner or the other folks that's part of the business development team?
Yeah, I think many people that are not professional salespeople and many that are just need somebody to help coach them to understand how they can get better in the process and how they can waste less time or be more effective in those meetings or be able to articulate the value in a clearer way. And, there's a lot of, I use a lot of role plays. So Marlon, if you're getting ready for this big opportunity, this really big deal you're trying to close next week, you and I might do a role play and I'll be the client and you be you. And then you execute that meeting with me. I get you comfortable. Then when you walk into that meeting, you're like, I'm good. Like I'm ready. I'm prepared for that. Right. Two more quick things I'll tell you because, I want to do this before we wrap up. Number one is I'm a big proponent of I can coach you better if I know your sales DNA. And I've got a methodology and assessment I use so that I can tell you, Marlon, exactly where you're strong with your capabilities, exactly where you're weak with your sales capabilities. And that way, when I coach you, I know how to lean into the things that you're not very good at. Like one of the capabilities that I measure is comfortable discussing money. So do you get jammed up in a deal where they go, I can't afford you. I don't have budget for that. And you go, okay, well, I'll come back to you later because you're not comfortable working around that versus the best people, owners and other people, they're very comfortable in discussing money. Even if the client says, I don't have money, right? They're able to work through that. And that's one of like 20 different areas, Marlon. So I'm able to measure people across those 20 areas so that I can coach you at a micro level and really understand what makes you tick from a sales DNA versus what other people may see. And then if I've got a big sales team, I can measure all of them and put it all together to show the owner what's the DNA of the whole team. Like where are you strong and weak as a unit, right? Think sports units, right? Where's your weak points, where are your strong points as a sports unit? Same thing as a sales unit. You got to really understand those. So I coach off of that. And then I really believe that if you haven't gotten really good professional classic sales training, that's the very last piece of the puzzle that everybody that relies on sales for their livelihood, one way or the other, really needs good classic sales training. I have what I think is best in class for that. There are others that would argue that there are other things that are better. But I'll go back to what I said originally. Without a sales process and a system, don't do sales training. Don't do it. You're going to waste your might as well set your money on fire. And that's why people get frustrated with sales training. They go invest in it and they go, hey, this didn't work. I spent thousands of dollars. Well, tell me about your process and your system. Tell me about your accountability. Well, yeah, we don't really do that. Okay. Like you haven't fixed the first thing. It's first things first. My coach tells me, know your order, work your order. Biblical principle, right? Know your order, work your order. Got to stick to the order. But then when you're ready, you really need to make an investment in yourself and your team and good professional classic sales training so that they can elevate their game when they're in the arena. When they're in the sales arena, that they can elevate their game. So that sort of wraps that piece up.
Awesome. That's awesome stuff. All right, Chris, we are near the end. It's been a wonderful conversation. Now, what I do with all of my guests is this final question. I don't promise it's the final question, but it's the final question. If it's 3 pieces of advice on whatever that you might want to give to, small and mid-sized business owners, what would it be? Floor is yours.
I've already served it up. I would tell them, if they really want to grow and they really want to build and scale their business, create and execute the right business development process or sales process. So get your process right, agree to it, execute it. Make sure that you're holding yourself accountable, and then in turn, you're holding others accountable. So make sure that there's accountability and that everybody agrees on what the numbers should be and what success looks like. So you all have to agree on that. You can't just dictate it. Everybody has to understand it, and you got to get the buy-in there. So buy-in is part of that advice, right? And then second, if sales is critical, you've got to invest in sales. You have to. Those that invest in sales are going to be at the highest levels. And if your competition is investing and you're not investing, well, guess what? If you run up against them in the market, you may be better than them in terms of what you may be the best lawyer and be better than them, but they're still going to outsell you. And so you'll never know because you won't get the deal, right? So invest wisely and expect the right ROI. So there needs to be accountability on the investment, but definitely invest in it. And then the last little tip is it's really hard to do sales coaching. Like most people are really good at coaching their people in the business, but to be a really good sales coach is rare. So I think that if you really need to be a good sales coach, but you've never really been trained to be a good sales coach, then I think you should seek help so that when you do have to do sales coaching, you do the best you can, even though that's not your full-time job. Like if you're the owner and the salespeople report to you, you've got to be as good as you can be at that sales coach gig. And most owners of businesses are not good sales coaches. And they know, like I know people out there shaking their head like, yep, I'm not a really good sales coach. But if you're going to be the coach, you need to invest in yourself to be a better coach.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you so much. That was great advice. We kept it under the clock. I know my audience will greatly benefit from your great words of insight and wisdom. All right, take care.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Kicking Ass and Taking Names. Remember, information is only as good as its application. So apply these insights and strategies and start making transformational changes to your business and life today. If you have not already, please subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and YouTube. Keep kicking ass and taking names.